Hello, my name is Scott Smith from Cobra Firing Systems, and the purpose of today's video is to talk about signal strength, or more importantly, link quality. Now, we're going to introduce some different techniques that you can use to improve the quality of your signal within the field. We are also going to be introducing some new accessories that you can use by themselves or together to help improve on the quality of that signal. So let's get technical really quick. Cobra uses a dBm value to measure the actual quality of the signal between the transmitter and the receiver. Now, link quality, or that dBm value, is measurement of the quality of the signal, not necessarily the signal strength. So I sometimes use the term signal strength, and oftentimes that's just a generic term within the industry. Signal strength is really different than link quality in that it measures the power or the amplitude of the signal that's being received. Link quality is more of an analysis. It's an analysis of percentage error within that packet transmission and how much of that information is being lost. You can have cases where you may have very good signal strength, but due to interference or other different factors, the quality of that signal may be poor, therefore reducing the link quality of the transmission. So where other systems may measure the signal strength, Cobra measures the actual link quality, which is a much more important measurement for when you want to ensure that transmissions from your remote will be received by, in this case, our firing module. Now, to measure that link quality, we do have a feature built in within the system. You can check your link quality from the module or from the remote. To do that, you just make sure that your channel on the module is matching the remote. So if you had a bunch of different field modules out there, in my case I only have one, this is on channel 0. I just go ahead and I put my remote here on channel 0, and I just simply press the sync button, and that gives me a number. In this case, it's telling me -20, -21, and you can kind of just continue repeating this. And you'll see that that number is changing as it's getting new information. -21, I think we saw a -7 within there. You'll see that it's actually displaying here the address, which is A00. That just happens to be the address of this module right here. So it tells you what the signal strength is, it tells you what the address is. If you did have multiple modules on the same channel, you can kind of cycle through those different signal strengths. When you let go, it'll tell you which address you're actually measuring. Now, this number is a number that will go between 0 and -99. The closer to 0, the better. So for example, a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, that's great signal strength. Once you start getting up around 80 or 90, that's a poor signal strength. So you want to be closer to 0. And it's also nonlinear. So what that means is that you may be, say, 30, 40 feet away from the receiver. You could be getting a -35, and you say, geez, well, that's crazy. That means if I'm 60 or 70 feet away, I must be at a 70 or an 80. Well, that's not the case. It kind of drops off and then it planes down. So you may be, it may require you to get up around 1,000 or 1,500 feet before you start exceeding, a 70 or a 75. So it just really depends, but it is nonlinear, and you can measure it right from the actual system. So the goal is to have a signal strength between 0 and -70 for any type of manual firing, or within our new 3.0 software release, you can be between 0 and -80. And the reason for that is within our 3.0 software release, we don't actually fire the modules in real time from the remote. Instead, it's sending out a timecode signal twice a second, and if the module doesn't receive that timecode signal every once in a while, it's no big deal. It still continues on its way. And so, however, for real-time firing, you have to make sure that this module is going to receive that command. Great, so let's give a quick demo of the signal strength. So here you'll see, like I was doing before, about a -20. If I go ahead and I just remove my antenna directly from the firing module, obviously that's going to decrease the quality of the signal. So now I'm getting about a -31. So you'll see that got worse. That number got higher, or in fact, since it's negative, it actually got lower. Okay, now if I go ahead and I put my antenna back onto the unit, you're going to see that that number went a little bit higher, or actually closer to the 0 point, so minus 21. And we're going to actually take these outside a little bit later, and I'm going to show you a more practical analysis in the field, but this is just a nice setup for inside. Great. So let's talk about a couple of different techniques. Now, one of the things that you'll hear about, whether it's from me or just in general, is raising your modules. A lot of times if you have a module sitting out within the field, you want to raise that module. That helps to improve on the line of sight communications. As that module is closer to the ground, I think the ground actually creates some type of issues within the communications based on the transmission. So one technique is raising your module. Now, if you need to raise your module, one suggestion is just throwing it up on a 5-gallon bucket. That's a really cheap way of doing it. The other alternative, and this is one of our accessories that we offer, is you can actually use a extension cable. So this is just a standard extension cable, and you can go ahead and just remove your antenna. This is a nice right angle connector. You can just connect this right to the firing module. This end here is the same as the end that comes off of the module. You can just connect your antenna to this. And then this gives you the ability to raise this antenna. So for example, if you had a little wooden stake or like a metal conduit or something, you could stick that in the ground, raise this up, zip tie this to the end of that, and this is a really nice and convenient way for you to get some improved signal strength without physically having to raise your actual module off the ground. And so you could even keep these connected to the extender cables, have these in a box, bring them out at a later point, and just simply connect them right to the system. So we have different lengths to these. I think this is just our 1 meter. It's about a 3-foot length. We also have some different lengths here. I believe this is almost like a 9-foot length. And what's really cool about these is you can also take these extension cables and you can kind of chain them together. So all these are kind of universally compatible. So if you did need some extra length, you can actually connect these together to make longer lengths. So this is obviously a little bit of a mess here, but you can see that you can connect these together to extend lengths, almost like extension cords for electricity. Great. So the next accessory I'm going to talk a little bit about is this bad boy. This is the Cobra Dish. This is a unidirectional antenna. Now, talk a little bit about the differences. This is an omnidirectional antenna, and so what that means is this antenna actually transmit almost kind of like if I were to put a donut around this thing. It's transmitting 360 degrees, kind of in a almost like a donut type of a shape around this antenna. This antenna is actually transmitting in one direction. It's unidirectional. It has about 120 degree view, so you can kind of see the angle of this. So it's going to be transmitting almost like this. Okay, so you'll see this is kind of your angle of view. So if you have a certain type of a setup where everything is in front of you, you can use this antenna, and this is going to have an improvement of about 8 points, or 8 dBm points. So if you were normally receiving, say, a minus 70, if you hooked this up and you had line of sight, you would go from a minus 70 down to a minus 62. Now, one of the nice things about the dish is that if you have a setup that's in front of you, you may have a little bit of rolling hills, you may have modules for the big guns that are out 1,000, 1,500 plus feet. Instead of having to go out and use those extension cables or to raise your modules to get your improved signal, you can just use one of these directly off of the 18R2, which I'm going to show in a second, and you don't have to be so careful about raising your modules. So instead of raising your modules or using those antenna extension cables, you just simply use one of these, you get some improved communications, and it just makes things a little bit easier in the field, so you don't have to be as careful about setting everything up. Now, how this dish works, and I'm just going to kind of move my module to the side here to show you, is it has its own connector. Now this is an N-type connector. This comes with the dish. This connects onto the antenna right down here. Just kind of show you, you're kind of screwing this in right into the bottom here. It tightens very nicely. Then what you're going to do is you're going to unscrew the normal antenna from the Cobra 18R2 or the 18R, and you're going to connect this right to the 18R2. One of the things that the dish has, so if you go right to the back of this, you're going to see kind of these 4 mounting posts on the back. The dish comes with the dish, of course, this black cable, and it comes with this metal bracket. And how this bracket works is it's kind of universal. You'll see all different types of holes that are on it. And the basic idea here is that you're actually connecting this in any direction that you want. So you can kind of see here that you can do it like this. You can rotate it like this. You can even have it go on an angle if you want. So there's essentially a variety of different mounts that you can do from this part right here. And then what you do is it just comes with these 4 bolts or nuts. And these kind of screw on and hold that in place. Okay? Now I'm not going to put all 4 of them on, but you can put all 4 of them on. That's really secure. You can have this sit on a table. Just put you can have this sit on the end of a table with like a sandbag or a roll of wire or something to hold that down. This also has kind of a rotary or an angle rotation, so you can mount this onto really any type of device that you want, lower, higher, just using this bracket. So it's kind of more of a universal bracket to give you the creativity you need for mounting purposes. Great. And again, this has about an 8-point gain on your signal strength. And again, it's not meant to, even though this will increase the distance that you can transmit, it's really meant to fill in the nooks and crannies, make it so you don't have to be as careful with your modules and checking things. It just kind of gives you an extra boost. Also want to note this is non-powered, so you'll see there's no power cords coming off of this. It's just a straight antenna using the same transmission power that the 18R2 offers. Great. Now one other thing to note about the dish is that you can also use these on the modules. So if you had a module, say for example, half mile away or some really long distance away, you could actually take this exact same dish, you could put it right on the actual module, and you could use this to transmit back to the remote. Again, you could also use a signal, an extension cable if you wanted, but this could work here, and this will improve not only the transmission back to the transmitter from the receiver, but it also improves the inbound sensitivity. So this actually allows for that module to receive the signal better from the position that it's in. So again, you can kind of use these on the 18R2, the 18M, but really more the 18R2. That's where you're going to see it mainly used. Great. Okay, so now the last accessory I'm going to show you here is what's called an amplifier. We are going to be selling these, and they're going to be coming out in a couple of different phases. But what this is this is a Cobra booster. Okay, this is an amplifier that essentially receives an input directly from the 18R2, and then what you do is you then put the antenna on the other side. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect my 18R2 using, again, one of our standard extension cables that we sell. And I'm going to put that right onto this connector here. Okay. So you'll see this is now connected. And I'm just going to put my antenna on the end of this booster. Okay. Now, what's going on here, and you'll see this is actually powered, and I'll discuss this in a second, is that our 18R2 would normally connect right to an antenna. However, instead of doing that, what we're doing is we're sending the signal through this extension cable directly into what is a booster, and this Cobra booster is taking that signal and it's amplifying it through our antenna. And you'll see that this green light, this means that the booster is on. This blinking blue light indicates any type of communication through the booster. So you'll see here if I actually arm my 18R2 and I choose to actually fire my 18R2, you'll see that that blue light is coming on every time it sees a signal go through it. So as I press the button, that blue light's turning on. So the signal's coming in and it's being boosted through this device. Now, this booster improves not only the outbound signal transmission, but it also increases the sensitivity of information coming back from the modules. And it's pretty dramatic. This specific booster has about a 12-point gain. So if you were at, say, for example, a minus 70 and you used this booster, you should be around a minus 58. Now, what's really cool is that with the boosters, you can actually combine the boosters with other antennas. So for example, if I wanted to bring my dish antenna back within the mix, you can actually take my dish antenna, and if I wanted to, I could actually connect that dish antenna right to the end of the booster. Now, this is going to give me about a 12-point gain. This is going to give me about an 8-point gain. So if I were to say, for example, a minus 70, with these two together, it would bring me down to about a minus 50. And that's pretty substantial. And what's really neat is you can, although you're primarily just going to use the booster on the 18R2 and also on the dish, for very complicated setups, you could actually use these boosters and dishes on the modules. So for example, I did a shoot in Nashville, Tennessee over New Year's Eve. We had about, I think it was 12 or 14 different rooftops, and some of the positions were behind buildings. They were compromising. So what we did is we simply had a booster from the transmitter, and then we just used extension cables on some of the modules. We used a dish on one of the modules. If we needed to, we could have actually put a booster on a module that was in a compromising position to help improve the signal back to the 18R2. But the whole idea is that you can use these different accessories if you need them in a modular way to improve the communications of all your systems if required. And what's nice is that if you don't need it, don't use it. Bring them along or not. If you think you have a compromising situation and you have a shoot site in about a week, go check it out, measure your signal. If it doesn't look like it's going to work out, you can use any of these different tools. And because you know what the gains are on them, you can feel pretty confident even before you get out there whether or not you're going to get the improvement that you need. Okay, so the last thing I'll point out on this booster is you'll see this actually has a plug in it. So if I actually unplug this right now, you'll notice that this is actually AC powered. So this is an AC powered unit as we speak. So you do require AC in order to power this specific booster. We also are going to be offering that exact same booster in what is going to be a Seahorse case here. So this is a Cobra booster box. It's basically the same booster. It's built into this device, and basically you would just connect your remote to this component here, and your antenna comes out here. It's going to be battery powered, recharge port. Now what's great is if you, since we don't offer this now, but we will, if you want to purchase the booster, you can do that. We'll be selling this booster box without the booster, so you can just purchase the box with just the circuit and the battery in this case, obviously, and then just take the same booster that you purchased previously, and you can install it in here. It's very simple, and we'll do a video on that later. Great. So the last thing I'll say, just a little bit about this booster as well, is when you're mounting this, I suggest, if you have a table that you've got set up, set this down. I always like to, for example, when I'm connecting this up, I always like to use some type of tape, like a gaff tape or something, and just tape down all your wires. So tape down your wire here, tape down your wire here, tape down your wire here, and that's going to ensure that everything that you have connected here is going to be secure. It's going to keep itself held in place. You don't want someone walking by and just ripping this cord out and suddenly losing the signal within the field. So it's very important that you consider taping down all these devices and mounting them properly and securely before the show. We are outside and we're going to run an actual test of signal strength, or more importantly, link quality. I've got my firing module down here on the ground. I'm using one of my 1 meter or a little bit greater than 3 feet extension cable on the top of a stake. I've just got it taped up here. That's going to help improve my signal. And so now we're just going to go back, run a couple different tests just with the straight remote. We're going to play around with the dish, add the booster, and see what kind of results we get. Okay, here we are with the remote. We're right on the table. If I just kind of zoom up here or angle up there, you'll see that's where my module sits. So we'll go right back down to my remote. And you'll see here that if I just go ahead and run a signal strength test, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 65, 66, 65. So you'll see I'm hanging out around a 65 with the system right now. Again, that's about 900 feet out, raised slightly up off the ground. Even though that seems fairly close to minus 70, don't really have to worry about it. That's actually really good. You know, it takes another couple hundred feet back to start kind of approaching that 70 point. So a 60 to 70 range is great, something you can definitely rely on. All right, so let's go ahead and let's hook up our dish antenna and see what kind of results we get. Okay, so I've hooked up the dish antenna. I wanted to get a different angle here just so you can see how this is hooked up. All I've got here is my dish. I've got my simple mounting bracket, stuck that on the side of the table, threw down a roll of wire, just something heavy just to kind of hold that in place. You could tape it down if you like as well. Got my cable coming out of the antenna, right back to the 18R2. Let's go ahead and run the test with the dish. Okay, here I am with my dish antenna set up, so let's go ahead and run the results. So we'll go ahead and we're going to press sync, hit a 61, a 60, a 61, a 58, a 57, a 58, a 60, a 59. So you can see I went from somewhere around an average of about a 66 down to about, I don't know, maybe a 58 or a 59 depending. So as you can see, it has about maybe a 7 or 8 point gain in this circumstance. One of the things you can do is you can even look at adjusting or raising the height of your actual dish antenna, and that can also make a nice dramatic improvement. So it's all about just kind of testing your specific scenario and checking to see what the results are and getting a good link quality and then keeping that in place right before your show. Okay, so here we are. We're going to run our final test. We've got our 18R2 hooked up through our extension cable directly to the input of the booster. That booster is then connected directly to our dish antenna. You'll see I do have some tape down just to create a little bit of strain relief on the different inputs to those devices. And I'm just going to go ahead and run our test. So I'm going to press sync. I'm going to get a 47, a 49, a 51, 49. You can see it's kind of hovering, I don't know, maybe around an average of about 49. So what we've done is we've gone from what was about a minus 67, 66 down to about maybe a 49, so it's about maybe a 17 point gain with the combination of the booster and the dish antenna. And you know, through raising the dish antenna, we could probably get a little bit more gain out of this, but it's really all about experimenting, setting it up, feeling confident, and using these different accessories where required to get the optimal link quality for your specific situation with the system. So I really hope you enjoyed the video and you learned a little bit about link quality and these different accessories. Thank you very much.